Does Tennessee really need another running back? Is that where Tennessee needs to be focusing on its efforts in the transfer portal? One's going to be on campus this weekend, and it would be beneficial if Tennessee were to lock that one up. That and more, it's your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane, and appreciate you guys for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. Each and every single day, you guys know it. We are free and available wherever you get your show, or you ever get your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make the NFL playoffs so much more exciting. New customers can bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's over at FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started today. Could Tennessee take a running back out of the transfer portal? There's one that is expected to be on campus today, and we'll see what happens there. His name is Star Thomas, a transfer from Duke. We'll learn more about that potential here coming up on the show in segment number one. Tennessee's defensive line has got to be better in 2025. Self-proclaimed the best defensive line in the country. Well, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't that in 2024. More on that here in segment two. And then we'll look ahead at Tennessee and Vanderbilt, some keys to a Tennessee basketball victory on the road in the Mid-State at Memorial Gymnasium. Okay, so let's look at Star Thomas. Who is Star Thomas? Well, Star Thomas is a transfer running back. He's an older guy, 6 foot, 210 pounds, originally from Louisiana. Just completed a graduate student season over at Duke in the ACC. He began his career at Coffeyville Community College, where he played 2 seasons in the junior college ranks. He played 2 seasons at New Mexico State, just finished a season at Duke, and now because of that year, that's granted another year of eligibility for seniors who come from junior colleges, you have Thomas that's going to play another year in 2025. And so he's in the transfer portal. He's been linked to a little bit of, I want to say Cal. Let's see here. I want to say Cal and maybe UCF. He's been linked to a couple other schools. Pardon me on that. We'll hopefully get some more information on that, once his visit is over here at Tennessee. But expected to be on campus right now. Expected to be on campus right now and visit Tennessee throughout the day of Friday. Again, these things change by the minute. I mentioned a name on the in terms of a cornerback name potentially, as Tennessee was trying to flip. I forgot his first name. I apologize. But Breedlove, the cornerback that is coming from Purdue, but spent time at Ole Miss a little bit and spent time elsewhere and is transferring to Arizona State. Tennessee was trying to get him to flip. He's a Nashville native, and I mentioned his name on the show yesterday. Well, lo and behold, by the time I went to bed on Wednesday night, that was no longer the case. Those two sides were no longer pursuing one another. So these things change by the moment. But again, Star Thomas is expected to be on campus for Tennessee on Friday. And I like this pairing, right? Tennessee wants a bigger back in general, right? That's why DeJuan Morris was such a late addition to the class, because Tennessee had interest in Morris. Morris had interest in Tennessee. Morris never came to visit Tennessee. Tennessee still wanted a bigger back. I think they both pivoted on one another. Morris commits to USC. Tennessee trying to search for that bigger back, never found it, okay? And then they both kind of came back to one another late in the season. He flips and signs with Tennessee. But Tennessee's running backs are all around like 200 pounds, right? But I think this is this would be a really nice partnership for Tennessee and Star Thomas, because 6 foot 210 gives you a little bit of a bigger back, right? Not a huge back, but a bigger back. And it's a guy that's been very, very experienced. And I think that you need that experience. I think that you need that added depth at running back. Why? Because Peyton Lewis, coming off injury, right? I mean, he was banged up all off season prior to the beginning of his collegiate season, his collegiate career. He did a really good job this season, okay? But, durability is not a huge issue, but he's still young, and he's been banged up before. Deshaun Bishop has had 2 big injuries, one much bigger than the other, when he got hurt in fall camp prior to the 23 season that ended his freshman season. But he did miss 4 games this past season as Tennessee's number 2 option in the backfield. So durability is a concern for Deshaun Bishop. And then you have 2 freshmen in Justin Baker and DeJuan Morris who you just don't know about right now because they're brand new. They could come in and be great. That'd be awesome. But they're new. You just don't know about them right now. What you do know is that Star Thomas has been battle-tested. 2 years in the junior college ranks, 2 years at New Mexico State, and a season in the ACC. And his numbers have been more than respectable. when you look at his New Mexico State tenure, okay, in 2 years, in 2022 and in 2023, he ran the ball for 518 yards and 653 yards. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry. He scored 5 rushing touchdowns. He scored 4 rushing touchdowns. Receiving-wise, 1 year he caught 12 passes. The other year he caught 22 passes. 1 year he caught 3 touchdowns. The other year he caught 2 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying here? He's been very steady. He's been very consistent. Not going to overwhelm you. Not going to not show up on the stat sheet. Been very consistent. And I love the fact that he's been used as a weapon out of the backfield. That was at New Mexico State. You look over at his tenure at Duke in the ACC this past football season. He played 12 games, 213 rushes, 871 yards in ACC play. It's not bad. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry. That is not bad. 7 touchdowns, okay? 20 receptions, 153 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Overall, 8 touchdowns. Again, very consistent, very solid. And if you rush for 171 yards in ACC, you're good enough to play. Okay, you might not be a stud in the Southeastern Conference, but you are good enough to play, in my opinion. You want to date it all the way back to his time at Coffeyville Community College, where he was second team All-Conference USA, 2021 first team Kansas Jayhawk Community College Conference All-Conference selection. That is a tongue twister. Have fun saying that out loud 10 times. Let's see here. In 14 games, 8 starts at Coffeyville Community College, rushed 160 times, 970 yards, 11 total touchdowns, 8 receptions, 36 yards, 11 total touchdowns, all rushing, 66 points. Yeah, he was really, really solid, even dating back to his early days in the junior college ranks. So this would be a good addition for both sides. Now, again, he would come in and he would be a part of the rotation. Yes, he would be another body, but he would be a part of the rotation. Now, I don't know his situation, and maybe we'll find out a little bit as the weekend goes along. What is his asking price? What is his agent, if he has an agent, what is his agent telling him? How are they going to control this? If they're going to come in here and demand money, and I have not heard that at all. I'm just talking here, you and me. If they're going to come in here and demand money and say, I want X amount of money to be a third of the rotation at running back this season, that's not going to cut it. That is not a good use of resources, okay? So that won't happen. But if you're going to come in here being realistic and not ask to break the bank here, I think this could be a perfect marriage here. And I think this would be very beneficial both for Thomas, who's trying to extend his football career, and for Tennessee, who needs a running back, not only for numbers, but a little bit of experience as well. Keep in mind, too, Peyton Lewis, true freshman, come off his true freshman season. Deshaun Bishop, a redshirt freshman, his first year playing, again, in a walk-on. He's been put on scholarship since, but a walk-on, right? I mean, not a whole lot of experience in the bucket there. A whole lot of talent, but not a whole lot of experience. So I'm rooting for this one. I think this one would make an awful lot of sense. And Tennessee, of course, in the transfer portal only has 2 additions so far. Wendell Moy Jr. on the offensive line and Amari Jefferson at wide receiver. Will we be talking about Star Thomas before it's all said and done? Maybe in the next couple of days. Once he leaves campus, since he get him to lock it down this weekend. Again, if something changes, we'll let you know. But is expected Star Thomas to be on campus this week for a visit with the University of Tennessee. Hopefully we'll be talking about that addition to the class because I think this would be very, very beneficial. All right, when we come back, let's look at the defensive line for 2025, and quite frankly, it has just got to be better. I'll show my work here in a moment, right here on a Friday show. This message is brought to you by PrizePicks, the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. PrizePicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs or regular season, PrizePicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time. There's no better way to get in on all that action than PrizePicks, where it works like this. You simply pick more than or less than at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yeah, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. For me, it's all about hot takes this season. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson over 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, PrizePicks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you can get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 in lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, where you can run your game. All right, guys, segment 2, I want to talk about the defensive line. And Tim Banks got up to the media back in last spring and said, hey, we expect to have the best defensive line in the country. I have no issue with that at all. Because as a coach, you want to have that confidence. You want to have that belief in your guys. And on paper, he was right. Nobody played more guys. Nobody had more experience. You return a guy in James Pierce, who was talked about at the time as being the number 1 overall draft pick. I didn't hate any of what he said. But that, of course, picked up steam from people like me that talk behind a microphone and kind of replay that clip and talk about it, so on and so forth. And then you get to the season, and they were a fine group. Tennessee was a fine defensive line group. However, where the TFLs have been consistent with all 4 years here, the third time in 4 years under this regime and Rodney Gardner, you've had over 100 tackles for loss, which is a really, really good number. That's the defense overall, not just defensive line, but it starts up there. The sack numbers were down. And quite frankly, you have got to be better at bringing down the quarterback. You've got to be better at affecting the quarterback. And in Tennessee's 2 biggest games this past football season, Georgia and Ohio State, the defensive line was a complete non-factor. So again, overall body of work, solid season. You got to be better. You have got to be better in 2025, especially in the big moments. So what does that room look like now with the majority of the transfer portal window done? Tennessee's still on some guys, just like Star Thomas we talked about in segment number 1. But the majority of the transfer portal movement already done. You got guys who are leaving for graduation, James Pierce declaring for the NFL draft, all that and more. What an incoming freshman. What does that group look like, numbers-wise and names-wise? Well, you break down the defensive line. There's a total of 14 scholarship defensive linemen returning for the 2025 season. 4 Leos, 5 defensive tackles, and 5 defensive ends. We'll start with Leos. Joshua Josephs is obviously a guy that's played a ton of football for Tennessee. He's going to step up as the top pass rusher in place of James Pierce. Now, he only had a sack and a half this season. Did have 9 TFLs, which was second on the team. Ranked 5th on the team with 38 tackles. He was a really, really good player. Pro Football Focus absolutely loved Joshua Josephs in 2024. Publication gave him the highest defensive grade of any Tennessee player, 90 on the season, which is considered elite. Joshua Josephs needs to take that next step and truly bring the quarterback down and kind of be that go-getter for Tennessee's defensive line off the edge in 2025. Caleb Herring's going to take a step as well. He was a part of the rotation this year. He continues to put on some weight. He was the 3rd option at Leo this year. He's going to be the 2nd option next year. Caleb Herring now 3rd year in the system. Time to make some moves. Jordan Ross, former 5-star prospect, made a name for himself on special teams, but really wasn't in the rotation this year. Of course, he was a summer enrollee and all that. But, hey, can't coach size, right? 6'5", 245 pounds. Really, really talented player. And he will be in the rotation. I'm excited to see how big of a step he can take in spring and how big of a role he can play for Tennessee. Really, really talented athlete off the edge. I'm excited to see what Jordan Ross can be. Emmanuel Okoye is also technically at that Leo position, but hey, he's been derailed by injuries. It's either Leo or strong side defensive end. Regardless, he's been hung up on injuries his entire career and really hasn't seen the field so far. Let's flip over to strong side defensive end where Dominic Bailey's making his return. That's great. 6 year of eligibility for the former. Oh gosh, what's it called? I'm trying to academy. Oh my gosh, it's been a pipeline for Tennessee. There's been a lot of players that have come from this. Anyway, it says high school. I've got it on the tip of my tongue, but nonetheless, Dominic Bailey. He's 416 snaps in 2024. Most of his career, 3.5 TFLs, 25 stops, 2 sacks. Dominic Bailey is kind of what this group is built on, right? He's built on veterans who are technically sound, who have bought in the system, know what's going on, all that and more. And really, really, St. Francis Academy, there it is! All right, there it is. Thank you. Now we can go back to our regular scheduled programming. Goodness gracious, that was killing me. But Dominic Bailey is exactly what this group's kind of built on. Tyree West might have the highest upside of anybody in that room, of anybody on the defensive line. 2 sacks, 4.5 TFLs this year. He's been an inside player in Rabbits package. Consistency is the key for Tyree West, but certainly he's a huge piece that's returning for Tennessee, and that's really, really great to see. Then you got a couple of other guys, a trio of returners, Tyree Weathersby, Carson Gentle, and Kellen Lindstrom. Tyree Weathersby, Rodney Gardner was really, really pleased with him, much like Deshaun Bishop, got hurt in fall camp prior to the 2023 season, and he was out for the entire season, hurt his hip. He would have been a part of the rotation, albeit maybe not a big part of it, but he would have been a part of the rotation in 2023, but that hip injury kind of did him in. He came back this year, and because Jason Jenkins kind of emerged, Weathersby was the odd man left out, wasn't really a part of the rotation. Super high upside, really, really athletic. Can he take a step this spring? Carson Gentle really, really impressed the coaching staff in practice as a redshirt freshman, as a true freshman who went on to redshirt last year. I think they believe that he can play. And then we'll see about Kellen Lindstrom if he can continue to kind of take some steps. So those are 3 other guys. And then, of course, Jason Jenkins, we'll get to in a moment. He's leaving the program. We look inside where Tennessee lost the most. But you do, much like Dominic Bailey, you return Bryson Eason, which is huge. He was on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board for like top 15 defensive tackles in the draft. Eason's coming back, which is massive. He's going to pick up right where Amari Thomas left off in terms of the leader of the room. Jackson Moy's coming back. Moy, 246 snaps this year. Eason, 362 snaps this year. 7 TFLs, really good numbers. 246 snaps for Jackson Moy. Couple of sacks, 4 TFLs. Those 2 guys are going to be the leader of the room for sure. You have David Hobbs, former 5-star prospect, that is continuing to progress. 208 snaps this past year, 2.5 TFLs and a sack. Nathan Robinson, who missed most of 2024 with an injury, and Jamal Wallace, former JUCO player. Those 2 guys are going to have to step up and provide some depth for the defensive tackle spot that lost some really good players. Amari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, Elijah Simmons. 3 veteran defensive linemen who played a lot of football for Tennessee. Amari Thomas, the leader, the captain of this defense. 23 tackles, 6 TFLs. That was 3rd on the team. 1 sack, 321 snaps played for Amari Thomas. Omar Norman Lott had 4 TFLs, 4 sacks this year. He had 5.5 sacks a year ago, so very productive. And then Elijah Simmons, who, though we didn't play as many snaps, only 187, very explosive, very big-bodied frame, 340 pounds at 6'2". A nice little piece to have in your arsenal, if you will. And then, of course, I mentioned Jason Jenkins, who left for Florida State via the transfer portal. James Pierce declared for the NFL draft. No surprise. Numbers were not as abundant as he would have liked, I think, for this year, but 6'5", 245-pound edge, 7.5 sacks, 13 TFLs, still easily led the team in both categories. 43 quarterback hurries, one of the most in the nation this year among any defender, and 464 snaps played for 2024. I believe that was a career high of about 1 or 2 from last year. Those are who Tennessee has lost. And then, of course, you're bringing in Isaiah Campbell, who was a top 40 overall prospect, strong side defensive end role. Marion Dye, I'm intrigued to see. He was a top 52 player in the country. Strong side defensive end. Could he bump inside? I think he's a very, very dynamic incoming freshman. You got Ethan Utley that's going to provide depth at defensive tackle for sure. 4-star in-state prospect, top 200 overall prospect, 6'3", 270 pounds. You got Jaden Lofton, who suffered an injury to begin his senior season at the prep level. Where is he at health-wise? He's another guy that kind of can be inside, bump inside, or be a strong side defensive end. He was a top 215 prospect in the country. And then Charles House, 6'3", 300-pounder, a 3-star, or a 4-star, defensive tackle. Again, is going to be able to add some depth in there at defensive tackle. So I like this defensive line coming back. That's kind of the lay of the land, if you will. But self-proclaimed best defensive front in the country, they were good. They were not the best. To be the best, you've got to show up against Georgia, and you've got to show up against Ohio State. And I think if you continue to progress and develop, you'll continue to take some steps. And that step, they do need to be the best in 2025. They do need to show up against Georgia, and they do need to affect the passer to help out their defense win some big-time football games. All right, when we come back, we'll look at this weekend's basketball matchup, Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Here's how Tennessee is going to win that game. All that and more right here on a Friday, Locked On Vols. From the whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate. Variety of bets to keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has got you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com today to go ahead and get started. $300 in bonus bets. That's over at FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, guys, we got a couple minutes left here on this Friday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Again, tell your friends, tell that Tennessee fan in your life that we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Weekday mornings, not just football season, but we're here for basketball, we're here for baseball, and we're here all summer long right here. We call it Locked On Vols. Okay, so let's talk a little hoops heading into the weekend. Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Tennessee's about to play little brother, all right? It's going to be in the mid-state, going to be on the road, but you guys know how those games turn out. It's a lot more orange than black and gold for sure. Vanderbilt's not bad, 14-3, although they are 2-2 in SEC play. 9-1 at home this season, so they've got that going for them, but Vanderbilt has dropped 2 of their last 3 games. Now, they were a winner at home against South Carolina this past Wednesday, a couple nights ago, 66-63. So won a close one there. Now, they lost on Saturday last week, 75-66 on the road to Missouri, and they lost last Wednesday night, 76-64 against Mississippi State on its home floor. So kind of been struggling a little bit of late, but overall, especially since SECs began, but overall, not too shabby for the Commodores. Still shouldn't be a match for Tennessee. You got the Commodores who are averaging 82.4 points per game, shooting 47% from the field, 32% from 3, 74% from the charity stripe, which is not a very good number. You got a couple of nice players. You got Jackson Edwards kind of leading that bunch in the backcourt, 17 points per game, 45% from the field. Got A.J. Hogger from the wing, 11 points, 41%. He's also an assist man at 4.3 assists per game on average, so he's a facilitator. Down low, you got Devin McLaughlin, about 11 points per game on average, shooting 65%, averaging 8 rebounds per contest. So they got some decent players, right? Got to slow down Edwards for sure, but they got some decent players. Ken Palm likes Tennessee big time in this matchup. Ken Palm has Tennessee winning 74-67, with the Volunteers having a 74% chance of victory. You look at those ratings. Ken Palm has Tennessee as the number 5 team in the country. Offensive efficiency rating at number 24. Defensive efficiency rating at number 4. Again, that loss on the road to Florida last week moved Tennessee's defensive efficiency rating from number 1 to number 3, or number 4, and that's kind of where Tennessee stayed. Look at Vanderbilt, according to Ken Palm, the 54th ranked team in the country, number 50 in offensive efficiency, number 62 in defensive efficiency. So, Tennessee should win this basketball game, according to the nerds, according to the folks with the pocket protectors. And I like the way this one could go. Look at the net rankings as well. Tennessee number 4 in the country. Quad 1 wins. Tennessee's 5-1. They played 6 Quad 1 games and 11-0 in Quad 2 through 4 games. Look at Vanderbilt, which has a number 42 net ranking. The Commodores are 1-2, playing only 3 Quad 1 games to date, 2-1 in Quad 2 games, and 11-0 in Quad 3 and 4 games. Obviously, Tennessee's been much more tested, and Tennessee has performed much better in those tests than that of Vanderbilt. Again, Ken Palm has Tennessee winning 74% of a chance to win. 74-67 is the projected score for the Volunteers over the Commodores, according to Ken Palm. You look at what Tennessee did the other night. Nice little rebound, of course, at Texas over the weekend on the road, coming back home, playing Georgia, who Georgia was coming off 2 back-to-back ranked wins over Oklahoma and then, of course, Kentucky, right? Tennessee won 74-56, down by a point at the half at 26-25. It was ugly. It was gross. Tennessee was very much on upset alert. But then the Volunteers took over, dominated the second half, outscoring Georgia 49-30, and it was Zakiya Ziegler that rattled off 3 consecutive three-pointers in the span of about, 4 minutes, and he just took over the game there in the second half. Zakiya Ziegler became Tennessee's all-time steals leader, getting that over Santiago Vescovi. And it was a really, really good second half for the Volunteers. Ziegler finished with 16. Mashack finished with 11. 5 of 5 shooting from the field. That was great to see. He didn't shy away from shooting a wide-open three, drilled it. You had 19 points from Jordan Gainey off the bench, 6 of 12 from the field. I thought he was great. And then Cade Phillips, I continue to think is a spark plug for this offense. The other end of the lobs, baby. Dunk City, alley-oop city. I love that connection with Sakai to Cade Phillips. I think it looks really, really good. Now, one thing that needs to change on Saturday, one thing that's got to work itself out is Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier's in a shooting slump. All right, he's 2 of 16 from the field, finished with 5 points in the game against Georgia. His last 3 games, Lanier has gone 8 for 43 from the field, 4 of 24 from three-point line. Again, very, very much in a slump is Chaz Lanier. Lanier the other night against Georgia missed his first 8 shots, okay? He didn't see one go down until the final minute of the first half, hitting a jumper with 55 seconds remaining before the break. 5 points in that game, of course, his fewest point total since November the 17th. He went 2 of 16 from the field, 1 of 9 from the three-point line. Again, I mentioned that number over his last 3 games, 8 for 43 from the field, 424 from three-point land. Hey, Rick Barnes isn't worried about it. After the game, he was asked about Chaz Lanier. He said, quote, everyone goes through it. He brought up Dalton Connect. He said it had similar struggles last season, but then he stopped himself. He said, I shouldn't bring up Connect because everybody wants to make that comparison, and you can't compare players. The best of the best. I've seen them go through some period where they struggle to shoot. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I don't worry about Chaz because he'll do it, and he's making improvements. Like tonight, again, this is after the Georgia win. He's going to have to make some tough shots, obviously, but I thought he did a pretty good job. Maybe as good as he's done all year at getting himself set up quicker. Normally, coming off screens, he's a little lackadaisical, letting guys catch back up to him when he gets in that separation. So Rick Barnes is not discouraged. He's not worried about Chaz Lanier. He's coached a lot of basketball players, and as he referenced, or at least he tried to, Dalton Connect also went through some struggles at points and times last year. So let's see if Chaz Lanier can break out of the shooting slump, and let's see if Tennessee can rattle off 3 straight wins since falling on the road at Florida last week. Of course, Tennessee's the number 6 ranked team in the country, number 5 by Ken Palm, number 4 in the net rankings. Tennessee's certainly back up on that number 1 seed line from Joe Lunardi after some losses to Alabama and some other teams this past week. So we'll have a full recap. We'll react to Tennessee's hopefully a win on Saturday. That'll come up on Monday's edition of Lockdown Balls. Hey, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let us know where you're watching from, where you're listening from. DMs are open. If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment as well. But you guys, my handles are listed right there at Lockdown Balls and at _Caner. Thank you so much. We'll come back. We'll continue to talk about the recruiting weekend. There's a Junior Day coming up tomorrow as well. We'll react to it all on Monday. This is Lockdown Balls.